There we go. All right, let me know how sound levels are. It's been a minute since I've done this. How is everybody today? A lovely Saturday. Sorry for starting a couple hours later than expected. I had some family stuff this morning. But you only hear music. Now give it a second. Let it catch up. There we go. Okay. So, what we're doing today is taking apart a white MacBook from memory. See, now I'm concerned you can't hear me. Live streaming is the worst. Okay, so I took apart a bunch of these MacBooks back in my day as a Mac genius and then working as a service provider. So we can take one apart today from memory. So I bought this on eBay just for this. I have not booted it up to see if it works at all. So we're going to find that out together, and then we're going to take it apart. There's going to be a part 2 of this that will happen once Mike is in town. So here we go. But I do want to boot it and see what kind of state it's in. So we will power it on together. I posted. It's got the telltale signs of being a MacBook, cracked top case, cracked bezel, but that's okay. All right, so it is booting up. I don't know to what. This is a 13-inch MacBook from like, I think this is an 07 maybe? They were kind of all the same, other than some internal changes. But it's a 13-inch Core 2 Duo probably. There weren't many Core Duo models. This is part of September. It's at Relay FM. We're raising money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. You can go there to the URL, stjude.org/relay, to learn more and donate. You can become a campaign fundraiser yourself. And if you do that, you become eligible for this sick desk mat. So I just got mine a couple of days ago, but it features me versus Mike Hurley. Now that is sort of the theme of the live podcastathon that we'll be doing September 22nd. So if you start your own campaign and raise money, you are eligible for one of these, as well as a challenge coin that on one side is this handsome face, on the other side is this handsome face. Zach asks, what's your take on the Core Duo versus Core 2 Duo? Honestly, in practice for people buying MacBooks, there probably wasn't that much of a difference. Okay, so this just has someone's things on it. Okay, if you sell a computer on eBay, erase it first. I will erase this before this machine goes back together, but it does work. And we are going to shut down. Oh, it looks like it's running Lion. Let's see. Yep, 10.7.5. This is a 2.1 gigahertz Core 2 Duo with 2 gigabytes of RAM. And like I said, someone's stuff on it. It's not good. We're going to shut this down. And we're going to start taking it apart. So the era I worked at the Apple Store and then later as a authorized service provider, these were everywhere. And they had a bunch of problems. Like I mentioned earlier, the top case. So you can see here, if I punch this in, you can see here, this is cracked. This was extremely common because if you look at the bezel, there's a little plastic foot here and it would make contact with this and break it. Apple made these for years and they never did anything about this. So you had to replace the top case a bunch. This one also has cracked bezels, which is also pretty common. You can see here, that's cracked. White ones would often discolor as well. So you would have kind of a yellow stain on your trackpad. You can see the keyboard's a little bit yellowed. Other issues these had were hard drive failures, which were really common. And the telltale sign of a hard drive failure on a machine like this is basically booting just to a white screen. Basically, the hard drive would die and lock up the rest of the machine, so it wouldn't even boot to like the flashing folder. I got to a point, let me grab a quarter, hang on. I would get to a point where I could just see one of these and like know what was wrong with it. So I keep a quarter up here. This is my overhead table, obviously. I keep a quarter up there to do things like this. So we'll take the battery out. It is the Apple branded battery in this one, which is nice. You can see that. Had a LED should show you the level of charge on the battery. Obviously, it's flashing green. This battery's probably dead. So what was really nice about these MacBooks was the ease of entry for the hard drive and the RAM. So I pulled the battery out just with a quarter, or you could use your fingernail if you had fingernails, or you could do a key or something like that. And then we got to take this L bar out. Now I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. I know I want to show the desk mat, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So there's that. We'll move my keyboard out of the way. So we have raised $138,000 for the kids of St. Jude. Well on our way to $2.5 million over the last 5 years, which is just incredible. So I got my screwdriver. I also bought, actually didn't have any of these somehow, a couple of ice cube trays to put my screws in because this machine's gonna be taken apart for a little while. And so I want to be able to keep my screws. In fact, I'm gonna get a sticky note and a pen so I can label where the screws are. Give me 1 second. I thought I had sticky notes, but I don't. So I'm just going to take a page out of my field notes. It's my field notes for the month. Okay. See, Matt's idea of pro tip white magnet pad, that's fine, except if you're doing a bunch of these, you need something that's a little bit more stackable. And I want something that I can close, so I bought ones with lids. So we will label parts as they come out. We're going to start by taking out this L bar here. This L bar has captive screws, which means they don't go anywhere. They stay put. So L bar comes out. And here we can see our RAM is here. You can just take these arms out and the memory comes out. So this machine had 2 gigabytes of memory in it. This looks like Apple memory. It's the Hynix, I don't know how you pronounce it, 1 gigabyte. So PC25300. I'm gonna take this out because we're actually totally disassembling this machine today. So here's my other stick of memory. And this is Samsung memory. So this may have had, usually these would match. So maybe one of these sticks was bad at some point in the lifetime of this machine. It's hard to say. Also, I'm a little concerned. Do you see how the edges of those pins are white? That can be a sign of liquid damage. So we will see as we get further into this machine. I mean, it booted, but there's something going on here. Sorry, I'm gonna get one more tool out. I would have killed for one of these when I was a tech full time. Like, I just had a bunch of tools floating around in a bag. All right, so we will. Okay, this machine's definitely been opened. This drive has packaging tape on it, and it is supposed to be on a carrier. So it would have an enclosure with a couple of T6 or T8 on here that slide in these rubber rails that are inside the chassis. This machine has been opened before, and by somebody who did not do a very good job. This is lazy. I'm not impressed so far with my purchase. All right, so we're going to start with these 3 screws on the bottom. Here. They're just going to come out. So this screw, you can see, if it'll focus, has a little bit of Loctite on it, which is common on Macs of this age. See that little blue on the thread? That's Loctite. So we will pull these out. This one does not want to come out. Help it out here a little bit. So if you haven't donated yet, you want to go to stjude.org/relay, that URL right there. And we are raising money for St. Jude during September because we believe, just like St. Jude, that no child should die in the dawn of life. And the research, treatments that are taken, that take place at St. Jude are shared worldwide. Since St. Jude opened in 1962, they have brought the survival rate of pediatric cancer from 20% to 80%, but there's still a long way to go. We want to help close that gap. So stjude.org/relay. So that bottom case, see? Yeah, we're going to put that in there with those screws. We have some other screws though to take apart, to take out before this case comes all the way apart. So we are going to start with these inside ones. So on this inside edge, see that line of screws there? Not all of them have to come out to take the case apart. Some of them hold this magnesium chassis to the outside case. But to take it apart, we want screw number 2, 4, 7, and 9 opens MacBook every time. 2, 4. I'm sorry if my volume's all over the place. I meant to have my lav mic and I forgot to charge it. 2, 4, 6, 7. 2, 4, 7, 9. Okay. While we're in here, we also, so this is the battery connector. There's 2 screws to hold the battery connector to the frame, and there's 2 screws to help hold the frame to the case. So we're going to take those out as well. And this one on this side is already loose. Which is not super uncommon. When you have a lot of plastic screw bosses like you have in a machine like this, sometimes over time, especially if it's opened a few times, then the bosses kind of get worn out. Now, if I were doing this back in the day, I would not bother with labeling where these go. In fact, if back in the day and I wasn't talking, I'd have this basically taken all the way apart already, but still working on it. So we got all the ones we need out of here. We got these 3 bottom ones. Now we need to go to the back and take these hinge screws out. And these 2 are the same length, and then these 2 are the same length. So we will take these out. So it's a little bit longer, and again, some blue Loctite. I don't see any corrosion on those, which is good. Take these out. All right. And we need to take, okay, so this gets people who are new to this. There are 2 screws here. So this is all the I/O. 2 screws here, 2 screws here. These are structural. These are just cosmetic, just so they had screws on both sides. So we will take these out. And these are collared, so they have, see, the threads are really short and they've got sort of a neck on them there. So they'll come out. And this will come out. Now, oh, we didn't get them all in here. I forgot. There's also 3 tiny screws here. See right there? On those clips. We gotta take those out. So these come out this way. These are really tiny. Does the background music have a static sound or is it just me? I am running my air conditioner, but let me just skip to another track. Maybe it'll be better. Maybe that track will be better. But there is a little white noise because I am running my AC. So we'll take these out. I'm glad I spotted those. All right, so now we can take this apart. What's up, Jill? So, all right, I'm gonna try to leave my zoom alone. I know that's annoying. All right, so now what we want to do is use our black nylon stick here. We want to start working the case up. Now, you see how easy that was? This has been opened before, but there's some clips here that sometimes you'd have to work loose, but basically this is just coming apart. There are some clips over here. All right, so now this is loose. And what I want to do is open it just a little bit and pull the ribbon cable. So there is our top case and keyboard assembly. So with these cracks, you got a whole top case. I used to know the part number for this, I don't anymore. But here you can see the specs of the machine, the serial number. And I really don't see a lot of corrosion on the top case. See, some of the keys have vent support under them because the fan is here. Now, I want to point something out here. You see this wants to rock back on the hinge. These were so well balanced that even with the top case on it, but with the battery and hard drive out, it basically wants to rock back. And so they really did a lot to balance the weight. On some revisions of this, all right, I'm gonna zoom one more time, I'm sorry. You see here? You see how that is routed out there? You see how this is routed out? On the early versions of this machine, they were all solid, and they cut weight over time by removing material from places like this. So this is inside our MacBook. And honestly, it looks pretty good. I was afraid of water damage when I saw the pins on that memory, but this looks pretty clean inside. Now we'll see what happens when we get further in. Now, either this machine has not had the logic board out, or they replaced this tape, this foil tape here that helps route these cables. If you did a logic board or an optical drive, you have to pull this up, and it doesn't really want to lay back. Sometimes it's actually cut, like someone will just tear it. And so if this had major repairs, then this has been put back together pretty nicely. I don't know, but it looks like it had been off. But I do think it's been opened before. I mentioned earlier the hard drive, how this is supposed to be in a little carrier with screws on either side of it. You can see this rubber gasket here. That was designed so you could slide the hard drive in and out. But this one was basically just sitting in there, and literally this is packaging tape, so you could pull it out. So whoever did this, failing grade. All right, so we'll set the top case aside. So a tour of the inside of the MacBook. Obviously we have our optical drive here, either a combo or a super drive. I don't know which one this is. This one's a combo drive. So it would play DVDs and burn music, but not burn DVDs. Processor and GPU here. Heat sink with fan support, just a single fan in these machines, venting out through the hinge. We got our speaker system, 1, 2, 3 here. So this would fire sound out the back at the bezel and let it come up. Speakers weren't incredible in these, but they weren't terrible. Obviously we have our airport card here, our RAM slots. This is where the battery goes. We have our SATA connector on this side and battery connector on this side. and the I/O is here. What's nice about this design is the MagSafe is a separate piece, and so if this was damaged, you could replace the MagSafe connector without replacing the logic board, which is really nice. So we're just gonna start taking this apart. Like I said, I need to get this all the way down to the case. So we're gonna take this completely apart. I'm gonna start by just unplugging some things so things can kind of come out of the way pretty easily. So we have our airport antennas. These get routed up on either side of the display, which we'll get to in a little while. We got a couple of connectors here. Connector here. And a bunch of stuff over here. So this is the connector for the optical drive. This is for the SATA drive, the hard drive. Oh, that was not, I don't know. I don't remember where this one goes. Oh, that's probably the display cable. This, I believe, is the SATA drive. Because then this gets routed. There's some clips on top of the optical drive here. This is really coming back to me. I haven't been in one of these in probably years. So that's our SATA for the hard drive. We're going to start here with the optical drive. There's a couple of screws here, holding in them from the side. And I'm going to make a note. Combo drive. Like I said, when you're doing this for a living, you don't need to do this, but I don't do this for a living anymore. We're gonna peel this up. So a bunch of these cables get routed this way, and what we want to do this screw out, or loosen it. The third screw for the optical drive is underneath this mess of cables. So you kind of got to peel them back. These other cables off. These cables, if I believe, are for the microphone and the camera. Look at this cable. It goes all the way over. You open a modern Mac, you don't have much of this anymore. Alright, so now we can pull this out. So there's that, and this should lift right out. So there's our combo drive. If you wanted to upgrade this, you could find a super drive and put it in. One neat thing is this here. So the screw that was down under all those cables, its mount is on a rail that moves a little bit, which is actually pretty nice when you put this back together. This is just a nod to the people who are going to have to service this machine. So you can slide it in and get your screw mount lined up. There's our combo drive, really thin, nice and quiet. This is not something we would repair in an Apple store. This would just be swapped out with a new part if it were failed. I just got a pile of parts here on the floor. Okay, so what's next? Let's take out the airport card. Which you could leave on the board for sure, but I want to show it to you. Here's the airport card. Here's the airport card. It's a Broadcom part. So if you ever ran like Linux on a Mac, this was usually a problem. The Broadcom drivers were just really hard to come by. All right, so that's airport. And even though it was a separate card, all these MacBooks came with it. All right, so all this wiring we'll have to contend with here. I'm gonna go ahead and undo this screw that helps hold this wire back, and I'm gonna put that screw back in so I know it'll be there. This is another little trick to know if a MacBook has been opened before by someone who didn't do a good job. Is sometimes this wire screw would be missing, or they would tear. See, the mounting point for the screw is just this little fabric loop that would be torn because someone yanked on a cable. These cables just get routed here into the bottom case. So we're just gonna work our way loose. Just gonna take our time here. Here's our battery. So one of these really small connectors is the battery to the clock battery. This here, this cable is a speaker cable. It goes to the sub and then over to the speaker here. So we can go ahead and take we're going to leave this here. We'll come back to that stuff. Let's get the logic board out. Let's go in a reasonable order here. So we're going to take our logic board out. Put my tape in there for the combo drive. We're going to start with the fan. Screw here. See, that's a longer screw there. And again, just a little bit of Loctite on it. Very gently pry this out. Oh, one more screw. I was gonna say, I thought there was more than one. So here is our little fan. It's got just a little piece of electrical foam tape there. I'll probably replace that with Kapton tape when I put it back together. There's a fan, not too dusty. Not too bad at all. There is, though, look at this. There is a lot of dust there. See that on the heatsink fins? So I'll blow that out with air before we're all done with this. There's a little piece of foam that was here on top of this connector just to avoid contact with the top case. So I'm gonna put this in with the fan screws probably. So we're raising money this month. You want to go to stjude.org/relay to donate. Well on our way to 140 grand. We're 138,000 right now, which is really awesome. Our goal is 293. That gets us to $2.5 million over the last 5 years. Would love your support of this amazing organization. Be sure to go check that out. All right, now we're gonna start taking the logic board out. And this is where we're gonna see what I really remember, because out of all the repairs for this, we're already further than you would be most of the time. Most of the time, if you're doing a top case or something, obviously you're not taking the logic board out. And I might be going in a in the wrong order. I may have to take some other stuff out first. We will see. Yeah, let's check some other stuff out. I'm gonna take this hinge off. Things are getting ready to get real floppy over here. So that's the hinge. This is the hinge cover. You see there's a little piece of white plastic there. that slots into this, and that helps control the seam you would see if you're looking kind of this way into the machine so you don't see into it. So that's pretty clever. So that's gonna go here. And now the display is quite floppy. We'll pull the MagSafe board. A single, and all this is Phillips so far, which is nice. So some shielding that goes over the MagSafe connector. It's trapped. Okay, so we got a little more to do. Let's see. We need to take IO shield off. So this long screw I put in my logic board bucket. I'm going to put in my IO board bucket. So let's see. We'll do MLB for the logic board. And we will do IO shield for that. IO shield will be there. So I take this out. Take this left speaker out. That's a long screw that holds that in. Here's our left speaker. Let's wrap him up here. So I'm going to go ahead and label that one left speaker. Hey, if y'all are in the chat and you're doing your own community fundraising, drop the link in so that people can see it. Because you can start your own campaigns. That's one way you can get this awesome desk mat, or that is the way how you get your this awesome desk mat. There's also incentives to just straight up donate. If you don't have the time or the energy to run your own campaign, you can just straight donate. There's a bunch of goodies there too, including a really cool wallpaper and screensaver pack, and a bunch of other stuff. We're doing some cool stickers. All right, so here's the MagSafe board. In there. This IO shield is a little tricky because it has all these little fingers on it that snap in to sort of the other side. See if I can. So there's our IO shield. Okay, let's go and take all this stuff out so we don't have a lot of pressure on the hinge. We can just go and take the display off. So we'll take the right channel out. Easy. And these, the longest screws on the outside, so it's long, middle, short. Go. So Ashley says, I started my campaign a few days ago at the Pledge Walk, 1 mile in the next year for every $1 donated. That's really awesome, Ashley. That's a great idea. So all sorts of fun community stuff going on right now. It is really cool to see all of y'all get behind this. We'll take out our right speaker. screws that hold the sub in. So another nice attention to detail is to know you had to put your screwdriver down here, so this little piece of magnesium is notched so a driver can fit down next to it, so you can come straight down on the screw head. Alright, so we have the right speaker assembly out. And almost ready to take that out. So there's our right speaker assembly. The subwoofer comes with it. Put that over there. Alright, almost done here. So now my display should be free. There we go. So now we have two halves. So we will come back to this top half. So if you need to replace the display on one of these, you can see, well, the fan didn't have to come out, but the MagSafe did, those hinge covers. SuperDrive could stay in, but it's quite a bit to take off. And you can see here, we'll get into this in a little while, but you can see all the cables get routed right next to the hinge. So even for a consumer laptop, some pretty tight tolerances there. So we're going to set this aside. It's a caffeine day today. Okay, so this now weighs basically nothing. So what's left in here? Battery, Bluetooth board, and this is the Bluetooth antenna. This was actually sitting on top of the optical drive that we took out earlier. This, I believe, is just held on with tape. Yeah, just some double-sided tape is the Bluetooth module. So there's the board, the antenna, and then the connector back to the logic board. Battery is also just taped in. Let's take it out. Okay, now we need to remember what is required to take the logic board out. Let's take some other stuff out too while I think about that. We're going to take the SATA connection out. Oh, sorry. Sometimes, I mentioned earlier that some of these had hard drive failures. Sometimes you put a new hard drive in it, or like a utility drive, just like, one that you had with macOS on, just to make sure it would boot. And it wouldn't. Sometimes this could go bad. And then along for the ride with this is the IR and LED. So that comes on when the machine's on, it pulses when the machine's asleep, and this is for use with the Apple remote in the front row. So we need to very carefully take this board out. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave the board in and take the connector off. For what we're doing with this case, that'll be okay if that's still there. we go. So there's our hard drive connection. Just regular SATA, nothing special. And then on the back, you can see that connector. That's where the ribbon cable went over to the LED and the IR window. Like I said, we're going to leave that. Leave that in. We got our battery connector on this side. So cable's routed over here in the corner. Let's see. Our battery connector. It just comes right out. So those pins all go into the logic board, and then that's the connection side. So let's see, battery connect. All right. So I got one in the chat about people's campaigns. If you're running your own campaign, share with us what you're doing. I want to hear about them. It's really exciting. Okay. All that's literally left is the logic board. And I feel like there's either a screw I'm missing, like I don't see, or it shares the mounts with the heatsink. Let's see. So that loosened it a good bit. I'm gonna label these heatsink. The outside, the heatsink. Yeah, so Kate is the official Relay FM historian, and they are encouraged to donate the amount of hours they spend on the co-founders quiz and some other things. Kate does a lot of cool stuff behind the scenes for the community. And the co-founder quiz is always a highlight of the podcastathon every year. So if you're in the Relay FM members Discord, there's a couple of St. Jude channels. One is St. Jude Discussion, where people are sharing what they're up to. Okay, well, I guess I'm putting thermal paste back on this because now I've got the heatsink off. There's the heatsink. See how nasty it is? So I'll clean all this up. So we've got our CPU and GPU here. It's really dusty. Now, oh, here's a screw. It's hiding under the heatsink. There we go. So now we have our main logic board. This is a MacBook. See the chipset on the back here? Yeah, I'll get this cleaned up. that thermal paste is cooked. Yeah, Mike, the desk mat is awesome. You can get one by signing up to be a community fundraiser. If you raise $1, you get a special edition face-off challenge coin. And then if you donate, if you raise, I think it's 100, you get the sick desk mat. So here's the bottom case. Plastic, magnesium interior, some plastic here with some metal shielding. So this is taken apart enough for what we're going to do in a future video. So I'm going to leave all this structure in here, but say that you had one that came in and this frame was broken here. You can take these screws out, like this part of the frame comes out. I'll show you. So you can pull that out. But some things would require a bottom case. So if some of this plastic was smashed in, you can replace the bottom case. And basically you get a clean one of these out of the box and you scoop all the MacBook and put it into it. Didn't see a lot of those. This plastic was pretty tough other than the cracking issue. And usually, at least in my day, accidental damage would be sent out anyways. It would be rare that we would fix a damaged computer in the store. Here's the bottom part of that I/O shield that came off. So we'll put it back. That back here. So it just wraps around the board there. How quickly could you do this back in the day? So if it was just a top case, seriously, mere minutes. Fully like field dress like this, probably 20. You know, we've been going for almost an hour, but we've been talking and I haven't done it in a long time. But it's definitely something. There were just so many of these. And throughout the years, there were slight revisions, but they basically all came apart the same. You just got good at it because you had a lot of them to do. This is a very popular machine in the late aughts. So here's our bottom case. Now we're going to come back to, remember this guy? The top half. So what you do here is pull the bezel off, pull the hinge housing off. This, you have to be very, very careful. So you don't want to break the screen, but there's all these little clips. You can probably hear them. Some people would use a tool, like a nylon tool, like a black stick like this. But with this, it's really all about feel. And so I don't mind getting the screen a little dirty just to feel these clips. I'll show you how these clips work in a second. It's pretty clever, actually. So we'll come all the way around here. So here's our bezel. Now if you had to replace the bezel, you could do that without taking the computer apart. So, okay, good. So some of the clips came with me. See these clips? They need to be on the computer side. So we're going to take them off. We're going to put them back on the computer side. Here's the bezel. It's real simple. Nothing to it. So these clips go in these holes, and they have little arms. See those? They kind of hook into the side of these openings. So we'll come way in here. If you were in a hurry and you broke apart these clips, you broke a bunch of these clips, you could get them as a set. In fact, I used to have a plastic baggie full of them. Because you would get a kit of like the 12 or whatever, but you would maybe sometimes only need 4 or 5. So usually they just piled up in genius rooms. This one's a little twisted. Let's see. But it can be really frustrating to put these back in. So all the bezel clips are there. Now there's 3 screws here that hold this piece in. Get my other eye straight in a minute. This just basically slides out. You can see, here's that piece, just another little piece of plastic. Here we have the inverter for the display. It's an LCD, so you have a backlight. Yeah, corner of this, see the corner that broke off? This plastic is just brittle because it's old. If you had to replace the inverter, you did have to take the machine apart enough to get the display off, because you couldn't take this off with it on the computer. So you can see how these cables, they come around, they're wrapped around that hinge. See that? See here? Want to focus? Give it some contrast. Come on, there we go. See that? It's wrapped around the hinge. Okay, so I'm going to say, I'm going to call it done on this ice cube tray. So I didn't label, one of those doesn't have a label. Let me fix that. Right speaker. All right, so that's one ice cube tray. Put that up there. Put that up there so we don't knock it over and have a bad time. So now we're going to start taking the panel out of the casing. Which of course you would do if one was damaged. Again, not something we would do in a store. Take the inverter out. It's connected with cables on both sides. Just a really little simple inverter wrapped in Kapton tape. Okay, so we're going to take one screw here. So that is right hinge cable. Yeah, Tony, I didn't know they made ice cube trays with lead until I went to Target. So I get them for this. And usually if I take something apart in the office, it's quick, right? Like I'm doing a repair, putting a drive in something or something like that. But here, this is going to be taken apart for a few weeks. And so I want to be able to safely store it. So now what we need to do, take all these Phillips screws out. Here you can see the magnets that not only keep the display closed when it's closed, but also that board I left in the bottom case, I guess in addition to the LED and the IR, there's a magnetic sensor in there that tells the computer when to go to sleep. Take all these screws out. There we go. Now, unroute these display cables. A little bit more to do. For one, I forgot 2 screws. I have to say, I'm pretty proud of myself. This has come apart much easier and better than I thought it would. Although we need to take this out. This little trim piece here. Some of the cable get routed under it on this side. So here we have the airport antenna. Oh, 2 more screws. All right, stjude.org/relay. We are getting pretty close to finishing this. So to donate, get involved. Here you can see the back of the display. This cable here is under this trim piece, so we'll pull this trim piece out. If I can. Don't want to break it. So the other one had clips on it. See those clips? I was trying to get those loose. This one came off pretty easy. This one did not, or isn't, at least yet. Jeez. There we go. It's one of those things that once these clips are opened once, it'll go back together easier. There we go. So now we have our display. So you can see this frame is held in with really tiny screws. You could replace the display and keep the frame. EyeSight camera, microphone. So here on the back you can see where all the cables go. So this is the antennas, excuse me, for the airport. Display cable. This came into the backlight and just goes into the display. And this long boy here is goes up here for the camera and the microphone. So that is the display. And here is basically the lid. You see here they left that out for the Apple logo. Oh, my magnets came out. Oh boy. That magnet came out of somewhere. Okay, so I need to see where this magnet came out of. It flew out. That might require looking at it take apart. So I'm gonna leave the magnet there and just deal with that in the future. But that's how you take apart a MacBook from memory. So be sure to. Why does it say don't touch the top? I don't know. Maybe that. Come on, focus on me. There we go. Maybe that is just sensitive up there. Touching it. All right, so all this is taken apart. We'll be back with this MacBook in the future. If you haven't donated yet, stjude.org/relay over there. We're going to be doing stuff all month. So in the next week or so, we have a couple things coming up. Mike and I are going to play Flight Sim. I have another stream, probably going to be a week from today, that is putting together the Lego Technic Mars rover. And then after the Podcastathon, I owe y'all a collection tour. So you can see over my shoulder a bunch of laptops over there. So that'll be a fun stream. But in the meantime, please donate stjude.org/relay. If you're running your own fundraiser, let us know in Discord or in Mastodon or on Threads or Instagram what you're doing. And it's always fun to see that. And I will catch you guys soon. Thanks for hanging out with me, and see you around.